Jim Corr from the Chorus. Hello to you, Jim.
Thank you very, very much for having me on to talk about this issue. Of course, I'm aware that I'm not a politician, but I'm a concerned citizen in relation to this Lisbon Treaty.
Yeah, indeed. I was just going to ask, before we find out whether you're yes or no, why is it that you actually are interested and have gone to the effort of actually ploughing through this treaty?
Because I've been studying. 3 years ago when I came off the road, I tanned on my hands and I started to study a particular thing called, what they call the New World Order. And I've done extensive study and research into this particular thing, and of which the European Union is a part of. And I feel now it's the time for me to convey the information that I have uncovered, which, by the way, millions upon millions of people have been uncovering as well.
When you say New World Order and the part of the European Union of that, what do you mean?
Well, this is what it is. The European Union is a stepping stone towards world government, or one world government. The whole idea is that they're going to merge the European Union with the Asian Pacific Union, with the African Union, and with the North American Union. Now, many people mightn't have heard about the North American Union, but it's been done in stealth under the Security and Prosperity Partnership, and it's been talked at length on CNN by Lou Dobbs in particular. And also the ex-president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, talked about this. What they're doing is merging Mexico with Canada and with North America. They're going to bring in a new currency called the Amero. Eventually what will happen is that will merge with the Europe, African Union, the Asian Pacific Union for centralized control, global governance to form one world government.
Why?
Control freaks, basically, the elite within our society are just the total control freaks. They want centralized control over everything. It's much easier, say, to control what appears to be one country as opposed to controlling many countries, and this is what the European Union is about. The European Union started out as economic integration, and look at it now. It's gone into political integration.
But doesn't it become more difficult to actually exert that control? For example, famously the Soviet Union tried to do it, and because it became too big, too cumbersome, it broke up.
Well, that's right. Well, I think it was broken up on purpose. It's basically divide and rule, because they wanted to reduce the power of the Soviet Union. That was the whole purpose of this. This is an intergenerational plan that has been on for possibly hundreds of years, of which the EU is just purely a stepping stone towards that. The architect of the Lisbon Treaty, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, he said recently it was June 2007, to Le Monde newspaper in France, I quote, "Public opinion will be led to adopt, without knowing it, the proposals that we dare not present to them directly. All the earlier proposals will be in the new text, but will be hidden or disguised in some way," unquote.
Yeah, that's the constitution, the old constitution that was rejected by the French and the Dutch voters. 95% of it's coming back to us in the form of the Lisbon Treaty, but they're taking out things like the common national anthem, the common president, things like that.
Well, as Bertie Ahern said, it's about 96% exactly the same. But let me get into.
But you think it's a stepping stone towards further things, sort of further integration of power?
Absolutely. This is when you hear George Bush Sr. talk about the New World Order. We can see a new world coming into view. This is exactly what he's referring to. This is the purpose of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Roundtable Illuminati group in the States, to push for global governance. Also, other roundtable groups are trying to do this. Now, all the indications are that it's going to be a dictatorship, a scientific dictatorship. My understanding, and millions of people are waking up to this, is that the agenda is to lock us into a technocracy, an inescapable scientific dictatorship. Now, you can already see signs of this happening all across the West due to this war of terror. Now, when you study the war of terror, the catalyst for the war of terror was 9/11, and that was the catalyst for the incremental implementation of draconian measures all across the West, particularly in the US and the UK. You've got the Patriot Act, you've got Patriot Act 1 and 2, Homeland Security Bill. You've also got similar in the UK. I have no doubt that you're going to see the same draconian measures being implemented right across Europe, particularly when our national sovereignty further erodes. We're going to see destruction of incrementally civil liberties in this country. Now,
but sorry, isn't the Lisbon Treaty doesn't have the Charter of Fundamental Rights, which actually gives human rights for individuals the preeminent position in the treaty?
Yes, it does. But then here is an example of what they call cognitive dissonance, right? It's when you read something and it all appears very rosy, wonderful stuff in it, and you don't take in fully the second line or the third line in relation to this. I'll give you an example of this. Here, everybody has a right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedoms to hold opinions and to receive and import information and ideas without interference by public authority and regardless of frontiers. And you move on down the line and you read, the exercise of these freedoms may be subject to such formalities, conditions, restrictions or penalties as are prescribed by law. Now let me give you another one in the European Convention of Human Rights. This is another indication of the deception that is deeply within this treaty. First of all, it said this is in relation to Article 1, everybody has a right to life. Number 2, nobody shall be condemned to death. Nobody shall be condemned to the death penalty or executed.
Aren't those all positive things?
Then it says, hang on, as you go down the line, then it says, a state may make provision in its law for the death penalty in respect of acts committed in time of war or of imminent threat of war. That means the EU endorses the death penalty. What we're seeing is tiptoe totalitarianism. They're changing systems here in the West. We're moving into a more kind of blend of super capitalism and communism. It's been done incrementally via gradualism, so that you're not going to suddenly introduce all these laws in a hurry because people go, hey, what on earth's going on here? Except it's done gradually, very, very gradually, taking people's liberties away. That's been happening in America and in the UK. Millions upon millions of people waking up to this, and the catalyst for the what is the nexus doorway into the bigger picture is 9/11. When you study 9/11, it becomes very apparent once you wade through the disinfo and everything related to that. It becomes apparent that not only is all not what it seems, but it was a staged terrorist attack. It's what they call a false flag operation.
By who?
Well, this is the thing. Many people across the globe believe now that it was carried out by rogue elements within the Bush neocon administration with the help of the intelligence services. Overwhelming evidence points to that.
Such as?
Well, first of all, we're led to believe that 19 hijackers armed with box cutters, orchestrated by a guy in a cave, carried out 9/11. Well, as it turns out, none of those 19 hijackers' names were on the passenger manifesto of the airplanes. At least 8 of them have turned up alive, wondering why their names have been associated with this atrocity.
Where did they turn up alive?
One of them went to the embassy in Jeddah and showed his passport and said, "This is me. This is my date of birth. Why am I associated with this?" Well, it has been reported in the mainstream media that 8 of those guys turned up alive. But as it turns out, 3 of the alleged hijackers were actually trained at a U.S. naval base, U.S. Pensacola. But there are so many inconsistencies with this, and it's very important to understand 9/11 because, as I say, it's the nexus doorway into the bigger picture of what is going on and the push towards global governance. You just look at those buildings as they come down. They come down at free fall speed, collapsed neatly into their own footprint. The cement, everything was absolutely pulverized. I mean, they didn't find a chair, they didn't find a desk. So what caused that? It couldn't have been jet fuel. It certainly doesn't burn hot enough to do that. It must have been explosions. And do
you think there was explosives packed into the Twin Towers before the planes hit the Twin Towers?
Yeah.
And that then the fuel from the planes acted as a detonator for all the bombs that were in the Twin Towers?
No, I think that was the fuel that was just for show. It's just shock and awe, really. We saw that initial burst first. No, the evidence of thermid, which is it basically it cuts through steel like a hot knife through butter, was found on the steel. Now, it was all shipped off by Giuliani to Southeast Asia to be melted down, the steel, so they couldn't get it. Like, they cleared the site of forensics, but one guy managed to get some
What
stuff.
would you say to people who sound that these all sound like conspiracy theories, that these all sound like that they're way out there?
I understand. I hate conspiracies. I've never been into conspiracies. What I've become is a truth seeker, and I'm very careful before obviously I'm taking a chance coming out here and saying this. I'm leaving myself subject to ridicule. I would urge the listeners to go and watch one documentary online. Go to Google Video. It's called 9/11 Mysteries.